Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. Today's episode, we are going to be talking to the one, the only, Mr. DC Clark from Accessa, formerly known as Clark Deco. What's going on, DC?
Not too much, Zach. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Man, I appreciate you coming on. I know you guys are busy up there. How's it going up there in Pennsylvania? Not too crazy, right?
It's going pretty good. Business remains pretty steady this year. And it was kind of iffy to start, but all in all, we got a lot of good things coming down the pipeline. So we're excited for closing out the rest of the Q4 and getting into 2025.
I think everybody's ready for 25. I mean, as much as I love politics, I'm ready for the election to be over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be probably, with that added in, it's going to make for a little bit of a rocky Q4, I think. So we'll
I think Q4, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, we'll see what happens in Q5 or in Q1 of next year. It may be Q5. Yeah. Who knows? Well, let's just kick it off. I mean, a lot of guys out there in the community know about you guys. The whole from Clark Deco to Accessa, the products that you guys carry, but just kind of let everybody know how you got started. I mean, when I came in, you were already kind of in this world. So how did Clark Deco come about? How did you get into the industry and how that evolved into Accessa? Just kind of fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I come from a fairly diverse background. I've been in a lot of different industries. But since the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I was down, working for my dad's company, which was also a distribution company. So he started me early. So my work ethic, he started me about 5, 6 years old. I think I started coming down on Saturday mornings, bagging nails and sweeping floors, and he was just introducing me to the stuff. Plus, I think he just, it was father-son time too, because Saturdays weren't normally too busy. But that's how I got into the distribution side. Worked with his company all the way through high school and into college. Still did other things on the side, did lifeguarding and, personal training and other things I sprinkled in there. But then I had wanted to get into the film and television industry. So I actually lived out in California for about 7 or 8 years. So right in Los Angeles, I worked, I'm actually still to this day in the Screen Actors Guild. So I worked as an actor for a little while. Nothing major. That's why, I'm not famous. But I did dabble in it, had a couple things going on, but found out that acting didn't quite fit my personality because I'm more of a driver and just, I have to be moving all the time. So I actually ended up getting more into the production side of things. And then probably around like 6 or 7 years into that is when I met my wife. And we didn't want to raise a family out there. And I was up for, a different, call it a promotion, I guess, but I was going to be shifting into a different company. And it was going to require me to be on the road for, probably 300 days a year,
Holy crap.
Yeah, I'd be producing concerts and stuff. Because I come from like a live entertainment background. I worked for a production company who did a lot of live entertainment. So around that exact same time is when Clark Deco was basically going to be closing down. So it was in our family's, dad owned it. It wasn't part of his like bread and butter business, his flooring company. But it was a small local like hardware store, kind of like a mom and pop hardware store that serviced some of the local cabinet shops, but it was really small. It just did a couple 100,000 in sales. It wasn't anything, setting the world on fire or anything. And so my wife and I discussed it, and, we decided that let's buy it and see what happens. And so I actually bought that having, started small production companies. So, I mean, it was in a completely different realm, but I had a little bit of experience running a company, but nothing like, I wasn't really truly prepared for what I was getting myself into. I was young enough that it was and naive enough that I thought, I'll just set it up. It'll run itself. I can, coast, and has a pretty rude awakening on what it took to actually build a company. But that started everything. So that was in 2010. And like I said, it was pretty much just hardware, cabinet pulls, hinges, different things like that. And at that time, I was also into restoration work. So I was refinishing 17th and 18th century furniture for a guy local here to Pittsburgh. And I was doing a lot of his work. And so then I started getting he introduced me into some coating products that he wanted me to use for his jobs. And so I was kind of doing that on the side for fun because I was always into it. And so then that's what brought Clark Deco into the coating world. And so in 2013 is when we really started to get into coatings and, how I started finding like what lines to do was I started calling up other distributors basically across the nation. Anybody I saw that was, selling a coating like ML Campbell or Gemini or Becker Chroma or whatever coating line. And, basically told them who I was, what I'm doing. I'm not in your general region. Can I have a meeting with you? And some of them said no. And other ones were like, yeah, come on by. And so I started traveling around just seeing how they had set up their labs, what coatings they were using, why they were selling them, what they were looking at in the future. And so I started doing a deep dive into that, started talking to the manufacturers, and we ended up partnering up with Becker Chroma at the time, which is now Chroma Pro. And then we installed a full custom color lab here in Pittsburgh, and then it just blew up from there. So that started to really grow and take over. And I want to say within 2 or 3 years, it completely flip-flopped our sales where, obviously we were all hardware at first, and then it was pretty much 80% coatings, 20% hardware. And then when we started getting into larger OEM type companies, started getting into different types of finishing facilities that were using just a variety of different types of coatings, walking in and, learning about UV coatings, polyurethanes, polyesters, at that time, still water-based wasn't really on the map. And we actually had a couple vendors that were telling me, you got to start selling water. We want to sell more water. I'm like, my customers don't want it. Like, stop pushing it on me. But right around 2018, we started to do a lot more. And it was really right around the time that all those Facebook groups and stuff like that started, because Clark Deco was one of the original distributors that started shipping online and started, going to any state, hard to reach customers that didn't have good distribution or couldn't have access to the products. And, that's when we really started to get more and more into the water-based side of it. And then it just continued to explode again. And so as Clark Deco kept growing, obviously, just like any small company, we had our growing pains.
Yeah. Everybody does.
Yeah. And I mean, and you've run a company before too. You realize how much work it really takes. And my personality is very driven, and, I'm certified workaholic. I actually don't say that as a good thing. I say it as a bad thing because, ultimately my family paid the price for that. I was not there. My wife is a saint. I mean, we have 3 kids now, three boys.
Holy cow.
For the first couple of years, I mean, she was like a stay-at-home mom. I was out the office all the time, growing it. But then that led to, good things for the company. But there was that internal battle of, I gotta find a way to spend more time with my family. I mean, my kids they're going to be growing up, before I know it, in the blink of an eye.
It happens so fast. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe, now they're 11, 9, and 7. So the time is flying, But I had known the Accessa guys because they also were selling the Chroma Pro line. And so when we would meet at a yearly distribution meeting where all the distributors from Canada and North America, we'd all gather and talk about what we see, what we're learning, just different products coming out. And so it's a great way for me to network and learn from those guys. And so I had known them for a while, and we just got to talking about, our growth strategies, what we're looking at. I was at the time looking at, opening another facility in another part of the state. And, we started talking about, where our core values are, how do we truly see how we partner with customers, and the companies just really fit like a glove. And we thought, we'll be able to add much more value if we partner up together. And so it was just perfect timing as we were continuing to grow and about to hit another, growth stretch. And it fit right in line with their growth strategy. And then, that's how Accessa Marketplace was born. So that was the merging of the two companies. We created Accessa Marketplace. And I think I told you offline, we are literally about a week or two away right now from launching the new website, which we've got a ton of value that we're going to try and be bringing to our customer base.
That's going to be huge for you guys. I know back in my previous world, it was always, on the manufacturing side, it was like, when the website coming out? Everyone's just dying for that Accessa website.
Yeah. I mean, our customers have been asking me for a while, and, I didn't want to just throw something up there and have it just be like a normal ordering website, even though, it could serve its function. But we wanted to just, my mentality is I wanted to be really adding value. How can we, in the way of just what we order, how can it be very beneficial, super easy to use, tying it into us as a company so that way we don't falter. So we have all the integrations into our ERP and integrations into our color database and, all the things that we have, that we did on the back end. It just took time to do.
Oh, I get that. I mean, getting that integrated with an ERP and if it's two separate programs, trying to get them to talk together on the back end, we were trying to do that. And man, that's another level of hell that just is wrong in so many. It should not be that difficult, but trying to get like an online e-commerce store to communicate to an ERP, even to communicate to other APIs, it's just, you would think that back-end knowledge would be a lot easier to gain access to, but man, it's not.
I don't even come from a technology background. Like, I'm fairly savvy, but, very novice at the same time. But when you start getting into that, I mean, I learned more over the last 8-9 months that, I mean, you don't really realize how complicated it can be. We'll start down a path, and then it's like everything affects it. So it's like, we need to make a change. And, if I make a change over here, now everything else down that line that was then tied to it now has to change too.
And you might have been up to a certain point and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you make a change and that change just kicks you back the 5 steps. You're like, son of a.
I had hoped to actually launch this month, and I had customers already like ready to go for beta testing to get on there, use it. And, to set up the pricing, we found out that we ended up having to use a separate API. So the other API was already built up. Then we had to connect in another one and then get those to talk. So it was like, yep. So that throws us back.
There goes another 60
days. The tech
days.
team wasn't super happy about that, but yeah, it is what it is. But we're now in that final stretch, a couple final things being hooked up. And then, like I said, I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks to make the announcement, get it out there.
Oh man, that's going to be huge.
Start using it, so we're real excited about that.
So, I mean, most of the community that listen know about you and what you guys carry, but just there's some guys on there, some new guys that have started listening and watching. Just kind of let everyone know maybe kind of a little more about Accessa. What Accessa brings to the different divisions that they have and how they kind of incorporate and how you guys now have access to all of that.
Yeah. So Accessa is a specialty coating company. I mean, really focuses in on coatings. So we handle everything from, now, just a one-man shop painter or finishing shop or cabinet maker, all the way up to very large manufacturing facilities that are fully automated. I go out once a month to one of our large companies over in Eastern PA, and we're constantly trialing new products, working on their automated lines, setting stuff up, setting up new stain programs. We have our own internal tech team. So a lot of other distributors, they have sales staff that know enough, but then they rely heavily on the manufacturer's actual tech team. So we try to go a step further than that, and we also are great partners with our manufacturing reps, but we have our internal tech team. So for the most part, we try to be very self-sufficient. We go in and know how to find the product or problem, identify it, fix it, get them quickly on a path to, moving forward again versus, we have to try and schedule in a manufacturer's tech rep or whatever. We don't have to do that. We can get in there most times and just get it taken care of right away. We're doing the same thing for Accessa Marketplace. So, obviously I'm always available. I got customers like, I'll get Facebook messages at midnight still. Sometimes when they're burning the midnight candle trying to finish a job and ran into an issue, and I try and be very responsive in that. But then we're actually adding and we're hiring another tech rep to help me with it, because as we continue to expand, we'll have another guy who I'll be making that announcement in the next coming weeks. We've got a great guy that's going to be on our team on the tech side. Comes from that world, so he's been a refinisher, very technical and savvy. So I'm excited about that. So just more things that we can, help our customers with. So that in tandem to I guess to answer your question is we're very technical, and that also led to us. The question always is, why are you carrying multiple brands? And a lot of times customers, they just kind of migrate to a certain finish because it just works for them. And there was multiple times where we'd be like, I really like this brand here, but I just can't get the help. I keep calling you and I feel bad because I'm not even buying it from you. And so that just led to us making partnerships outside of just one brand. And that's why we carry multiple brands, that way we can broaden our scope to help as many people as we really can.
Yeah, I look at that and I used to tell guys all the time, I'm like, listen, some people just have a brand they like. It's Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Hyundai, Dodge. There's a coating for everyone, and people have the coatings. And if you have the ability, like you guys do, to bring in multiple lines to be able to service those guys and have the tech crew, it's genius. Not only on business, but just as an all around helping the industry and some of these smaller guys, because you do bring in some of the smaller manufacturers to give them some, we'll call, exposure, but they don't really have the technical crew developed out yet. You guys can help them do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what really sets us apart. Being able to help in a lot of different facets, because we're also, Accessa's been in business, I think, since the 70s in coatings. So they come with a very deep set of knowledge and are into so many different niches. And that allows us to be able to pull from a lot of different areas, because we get into very specialty finishing from, high production RV lines down to a guy who just does super high end piano gloss finishes to another guy that's doing, baskets, like literally like woven baskets to interior, exterior flooring. They even get into some industrial metal coatings, aircraft coatings. So in that respect, that really helped broaden out what Clark Deco had, because it brought a whole support system and infrastructure and that extra set of help on the technical side. And then what Clark Deco was able to bring too was I never let go of the hardware lines. They were still always a part of us. So then we started plugging in a lot of the different hardware lines where, we sell the surf prep. We sell Kremlin. We sell Sia. We sell hinges and drawer slides and a lot of different things, which
Well,
will
that's a
actually be up on the
huge,
website just to let people know that it's there.
yeah. I mean, that's a huge value add to these cabinet shops, whether they're big or small. I mean, to be able to, it's kind of like, you know, without saying the big guy that tends to start with a W or an R that sells a whole bunch of lumber with it. You know, you guys are adding value there because they can come to a place to get their coatings, but they can also pick up their hardware or their hinges or send a customer to do that. And it's just those little value adds make a huge difference. Just multiple revenue streams as a business. That's hella smart.
Yeah. And I mean, and we already had it because we were selling into the cabinet shops. And so, especially as refinishers start to look at, you know, basically selling more to their customers as they're continuing to enhance and not just going to refinish, but hey, we can put in soft close hinges, or we can swap out your drawer slides to soft close drawer slides, or those different things can be a you know, an add-on sale for a lot of these refinishers. Or if they're actually refacing it and they're getting doors and stuff like that, and then they're going to need it.
Yeah, I remember before we started talking to, and if it's a market that fascinates me is the RV market, how much Accessa is interwoven into that, like Indiana, Pennsylvania, a lot of the Amish market, and just the amount of cabinet makers that just solely manufacture for these RVs.
It's massive. Thousands upon thousands a week.
It is
Yeah.
crazy. Like, I mean, you know, I live full time in an RV. We live full time in a Class A, and I just look
Really,
at
that's cool.
yeah. We live full time in a 45-foot Class A motorhome. We started in December of last year with our 7-year-old and 3-year-old.
What prompted that?
My wife she works for a government contractor, and we were in North Dallas. I sold my company in Oklahoma. We moved to Allen, McKinney, and that's when I started working over at CIC. And then they asked her to come down to Waco to fix some problems that they had at one of their facilities. And we came down here and visited and just didn't really love Waco, if you know what I mean. It's a interesting town. You know, college and kind of country Texas. It's interesting. So we were like, and they asked her to be down here for 2 years. So we were like, okay. We've always owned RVs and travel trailers and stuff. So we didn't want to buy a house. Plus buying in Texas sucks because it's ridiculous. So we
I don't know
sold
much about Texas.
the taxes are ridiculous. Property taxes are insane. And the cost of housing just keeps going up and up and up because people from California and other states are coming over and paying 20% over asking, all cash. So they're just driving the market crazy. So we sold our house in North Dallas and Allen, and we started looking around, and I was like, let's do the RV thing. So we went and looked at them, and we bought this, you know, Integra. It's a Class A motorhome, and I mean, the thing is just, we love it. I mean, I don't know if we'll go back to a house. I mean, kids maybe when they get in junior high or high school, maybe, but I mean, things got every amenity that an apartment would have, except we just take it wherever we go.
You could just pick up and go. That's pretty awesome.
We literally, I mean, like weekends, if it's a long weekend, we'll go down to Houston. We'll go see family in Oklahoma. For Thanksgiving, we're going to go to South Carolina with family. Her parents just moved to Durango. So 3 times this summer, week and a half, 2 weeks at a time, just go to Durango and hang out with them. And everything you have is with you. Like, you don't leave anything at home. You don't have to go to the store and buy anything. You don't have to wait on flights. You don't never pack a bag.
I could do it, I think. If I could talk my wife into it, because I keep telling her, you know, someday that's what I want. Well, there's 2 things I want to do when my boys get a little bit older is we want to take a summer and hike the Appalachian Trail, take a couple months to do something like that. Then I also said I'd love to just pack up in a trailer and just go from time to time, just cross country.
I mean, it is really awesome. I mean, I think at some point, and we have a Starlink on top, that high-speed internet going down the highway doesn't matter. It's like right now I'm set up in my bus. Kids are at school. Yeah, I just set it up in here, and my wife will sit back here and sit on meetings all day long when we're running down the road, and no schedule, just do what you want. It's a fun life. But I mean, getting into this world, and I just started another business where we bought some travel trailers and we rent them to people, that want to try it, or they're coming in town, college town. But uh, the amount of trailers manufacturers, I mean, it's really owned by like 3 companies, but there's so many companies out there, and there's so many different companies that are making cabinets for them. And you start tracing it back, and it's just absolutely mind boggling at how big that industry is, and all that. It's really untapped for a lot of guys out there on the coatings world. Like, no one really taps into it.
I didn't really realize how big it was until, we joined forces with Accessa, because they're big into the RV world. I mean, some of those companies just pop out. It's astronomical.
There's a company here in Central, well, it's more East Texas. It used to be family owned, but I think they got gobbled up or sold out or something. It's a company called Four Travel. Used to be the Fours. All they do is make custom Class A motorhomes, custom buses. Like, I want to say they start at like 1.2.
That's wild, man.
They're nuts. I mean, they're gorgeous, and I want to say they're just using high build lacquer, because no one knows they exist, and no one goes to visit them. And I'm like, you guys gotta step it up.
Absolutely, that's wild, man.
I mean, you got all these windows, and that's why I've been telling people, like, it's an industry, especially on the premium market. There's a company in Miami, Oklahoma, Newell Coach, and that's all they do is make premium custom coaches. And I think the average coach price for them is like $2.2 million.
That's gracious.
And they buy lacquer from SW. You're just like, oh boy, what?
That doesn't surprise me though. I mean, they go through so much volume. I mean, they're probably just looking for what's the cheapest option sometimes. Depends on which one though.
I didn't realize until we came to Texas and it kind of got in that DFW is the aforementioned largest market. They do over like 390 million a year in DFW.
That's insane. It's cow.
It's nuts. I mean, I could go, and this used to blow me in my mind when I was in North Dallas, and there was, not far from the manufacturing facility, there was a Ben Moore, PPG, and an SW. And I used to drive by the SW store almost every day going to the office. And I mean, you could probably, if you had a decent arm, you could throw a rock and hit the PPG store from the SW store. Line. 30 people deep.
Really?
And you go over to PPG and you could hear crickets farting.
Jeez.
I'm just like, I don't understand. They'll just wait. They'll just sit there and wait, talk on their phone till their paint's done. Those guys over at PPG are just twiddling their thumbs because they don't have anything to do.
That's unreal. You think that they would try and do something to pull that in?
Yeah, go put a sign over there, drive over there, and be like, "Hey, I got paint, guys."
Well, I mean, that boils down to having the right people down there, because you got to have someone that wants to go and get it, figure out a solution for them.
I mean, that could be part of the reason PPG's in the pickle that they're in right now, trying to sell the architectural coatings market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, we'll get back on track a little bit. That's what I love about this podcast is we get off track a lot. But how, on the entrepreneur side, like a lot of guys out there starting painting companies, starting finishing companies, like what, being a guy that decided, hey, let's buy this business and let's go. What kind of advice would you have for those guys out there starting out?
Stay focused, set your goals, and yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the things that I wasn't great at when I first started it. I just kind of threw spaghetti at the wall and then kept chasing myself, going over here and going over there rather than having a set set path of goals, and then slowly just start achieving them one after another. So to be a little bit more organized up front, and know that, putting that time up front will save you a lot of time down the line, setting up your SOPs, going out, getting the proper training. Don't bounce around from vendor to vendor so much at first. Like if you've got vendors that you can rely on, that you already can vet that they've got good quality products, and start building and fostering that relationship. I think that's very important, because you need that stability and that foundation of who I'm going to for help when problems arise, because you'll have problems no matter which direction you go. And, when you're starting in an industry that you are heavily relied on coatings, that mentality of, well, I had problems with that one, so I'm going to try this one. So-and-so says this one's great, so I'm going to try that one. Next thing you know, I was working with a finishing company who it took me probably 3 years to build the trust to earn his business. Now he's one of my largest accounts, but it took a long time to build that trust. But he would share with me. I actually learned a lot about setting up processes and stuff for him. Like when I was building my business, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna kind of tweak it a little bit and use that in my business. But he said, at first, he was, as a finish shop, he was getting spec'd in, like, you have to use this coating, you have to use that coating. He's like, I had more waste. I would end up losing sometimes 3 or 4 points at the end of the year just because I couldn't stay consistent on a coating. And then we would have a problem. And then I didn't know which way to go. And, so that's pretty important. So, once you set your goals, stay focused and work harder than anybody else, and that was kind of my thing is when I started my company, I was like really the small fish. I was surrounded by a company that's already doing like $100 million a year. Another company that was close to us that was doing finish was doing probably, not just in coatings, but the company itself was a $50 million company. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to, compete here. I just, my mindset was like, I'm just going to outwork everyone. And that's what I did. So, but going back, outworking them, but being a little bit more strategic and smart about it from the get-go probably would have saved me a lot of extra hours that I didn't need to do. So that would be the biggest thing.
Yeah. You can always look back, but you guys set yourselves apart. You're still weighing everything, right? Doesn't matter the manufacturer. You do everything by weight.
We do everything by weight, and we now we scan every single batch. So every batch is scanned in. Doesn't matter if it's a remix or what. We don't trust it, because even the bases can fluctuate. There's a plus and minus to the base. There's a plus and minuses to the colorants. So anytime you get a new batch in, that can shift your color up. So we have, especially over this last, through the transition into Accessa, and we revamped a lot of our QC procedures. Now we have it set in place where every single batch is QC'd and sprayed out and scanned in. It has to hit within a certain delta point, and it has to be in the same color quadrant. So for anybody that doesn't understand what that means, like when you're scanning something in, getting a delta reading, there's 4 color quadrants, and you might have 0.5 or a 0.3 in the red yellow. But if you do another one and you say, oh, look, it's at a 0.4, but it's in green blue, then you could be like a full delta swing between those, and you're not going to match the same paint that went out. So everything has to be in the same color quadrant within a certain tolerance that we set. But everything is done by weight. Everything is scanned in to maintain that consistency. And that's what really helped Clark Deco grow, was our color department. And that's what continues to help Accessa Marketplace grow. And Accessa as a whole has always had some of the standards that we implemented then to what is now Accessa Marketplace. Even with QC and like stains and glazes and everything that we do.
Are you guys doing, and I don't remember if you guys were doing this, but I had heard at one point you guys would do, for a surcharge, you would do pour-offs. And if someone needed a quart, you would sell a quart. Are you guys doing that?
We got 2 quarts. Gallons is the smallest that we do. We're the manufacturer of things. Corey from Inspired by You had a quart program for like on that. Yeah, I know it's something that I know comes up, especially for a lot of the smaller furniture.
I mean, it's one of those ones that a lot of people like with the weight world, and it was always my big benefit of doing measuring by weight was because if you need a quart, if you need a pint, it doesn't matter. You just mix it up by weight, and your color's going to be good. But I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like, "Oh man, I need a quart to touch stuff up." But outside of, I mean, I think I was going to say outside of GF, but I think they only do it in stains. I don't think they do it in enduro. I don't know if there is anybody doing quarts.
It gets tough to do it. I mean, even though you're doing it all by weight and you can batch it down, if even if you're like a little bit heavy on something like a red tint, it may measure out right. You may even be down to 1/100th of a gram if you're going to 1/100th of a gram instead of a tenth. If it's a little bit of a heavy pour on something as small as a quart and it's red in a white, that can throw it off, or it may not throw off a full gallon. So it does get tough, and then otherwise you're mixing in big batches, and then you're pouring it off, which takes a lot of time.
Oh yeah. I think I learned the smallest I could ever go and still maintain quality from a gallon to a quart was about 150 to 200 grams if I'm going by weight. If I tried to go smaller than that, and I went to the 100th on my gram scale, so you could get just drops, you had to be very careful. But any smaller than like 150, 200 grams, you couldn't put the color in small enough for some of those colors.
Yeah, and it depends if you're doing stains or paints. It's 2 completely different types of methodologies sometimes to matching.
I remember everybody telling me that stains was the easy one. Paint's the hardest. Stains easy. And I'm here to tell you, over 10 years in the business, and I think all those people are full of crap. I'll pick a pigmented color any day of the week over a stain. I hate stain matching.
I'm training some of our team right now because I used to be when it was Clark Deco, I was like the main formulator, especially for our large OEMs. So I still have I've got a ton of formulation experience, and stains is an art, and it can be taught to a certain degree, but if you can't see that background color and the foreground color and how you can maybe mix dyes and pigments together, or that's one of the other things too that we get into is we don't just a lot of to keep SKUs down. A lot of other competitors will have like a specific like colorant line, and they try to use that and as much as they can, which makes a lot of business sense. But we ended up having every colorant you can think of, down to different types of metallics to fluorescent colors to I've had stains where we've had to mix a little bit of metallic into a stain to kind of get a certain shimmer effect, and mixing the right amounts of dyes and stuff. So we get really technical, and we have a lot of different raw materials here to get the looks that we need. Because
that's a lot to remember,
and it's very hard to train. Because that's what my team will be like. Well, how'd you look at that and know what to do? It's just I know the products that we have down there, and that's hard to transfer that knowledge. But if you have the eye, then it can be acquired and learned. But you got to have that eye for matching color.
Yeah, you do have to have the eye. I mean, if you're colorblind, it's pointless. But even if you're partial colorblind, all patience.
I think the joke is downstairs we used to have a door that led into our main color studio, and that door's not there anymore. So that was from my earlier days of learning because it had too many holes in it. So
that's how you developed the patience.
Yeah. It's like you gotta have some patience if you're gonna do it. I don't have a punching bag down there anymore.
And that's what every paint distributor needs for the employees, is just to hang a punching bag around the corner from the tint machine. That would solve a lot of problems.
It's not a bad idea. My branch manager keeps telling me to put one up here. He's like, I need to let some frustration out.
That's actually pretty good. I'll have to remember that.
I have to look at it.
My local paint store that I used to buy at was Spectrum Paint, and before I started tinting, and I learned a lot from those guys, I used to go in there and I'd be getting whether it be a lacquer or a wall paint, whatever, but they'd be training a new guy, and the store managers have just been there forever, and they were just trained over the years and could see anything, and they could just, I mean, I just be there and he just walked by with the control sample and then the match he just did, and he'd be like, Jeremy, I feel like I'm missing something. And Jeremy would just look, put 2 drops of green, a drop of magenta, and half a drop of yellow. And I'd just be like, what the crap? And then he'd come back and it'd be perfect. And I'm just like,
and that's what did it. Yep.
God, I was never that good. I relied heavily on my Spectro.
Yeah. I mean, over time you can get that kind of, that level of just being able to see it and know, and our guys downstairs are really good like that. We've got my lead color matcher downstairs. He's way faster than I used to be. Now he could just look at the color. I mean, for paints, we scan everything in, so we have it, but even though, I mean, sometimes you're dealing with, color flip, or, you're matching some old where it's actually the clear coat's yellow on top of something that's white and gets, goofy readings where you can't really rely on your Spectro. You just got to go by eye. And he's really good and quick with that. So, but it took him, he's been with us now for 5 or 6 years, I think.
Wow. That's where I always tell everyone, they'll be like, you'll hear painters. I'll be talking to painters, same thing, social media, asking me questions and stuff. And, I bought this paint at Home Depot or something. And I'm like, I get it. There's a convenience factor to that. The box stores. There's a convenience factor to those box stores. But the skill and the level of training they get versus an actual paint distributor, it's a different level of training. There's a reason why they say no returns on matched colors, and you've got 3 gallons in 3 different colors.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, if your delta's off a little bit and you're doing big walls, you're not going to see the difference. But if you got 2 cabin doors, you better be at a 0.3 or you're going to see it. And it's, and I wish it was as easy as once you set up a formula. I was just talking to our branch manager because he was redeveloping a couple things with our QC department. It's like, get a new batch of colorant in, and now we have to make small little tweaks to make sure we're still hitting that right delta. And that's the level of precision that you need to be in the higher end world, especially in the cabinet painting. You don't have to be necessarily on latex paints.
No, not necessarily, but I used to tell distributors that too. They'd be like, hey, I just shot this color last week and the color's off. I'm like, okay, did you shoot the same formula? Yeah. And I'm like, have you filled your machine recently? Yeah, but that's just colorant. And I'm like, no. You need to rescan it because the colorant can change. I mean, you think about it, it doesn't matter who the colorant manufacturer is. I mean,
they all have a plus or minus.
They all have a plus or minus, and they're manufacturing that colorant just like the paint manufacturers are matching the paint. 800,000 gallon batches. Stuff happens. People are people. That there's not a whole lot you can do about that. So now that you've kind of merged with Accessa and given you a little more time with the family, what's DC do outside of painting, outside of working all the time?
Trying to cut back and work. Like I said, I negatively, I'm still a workaholic and find myself always finding some kind of project that needs to be done. But I've been forcing myself, to stay at home more. And so now I'm actually coaching soccer. So I got
awesome.
3 boys. They're all playing travel soccer. So I'm coaching 2 of the teams, and I'm helping coach my oldest son's team. And then I also help with coaching and wrestling too. So they just started wrestling 2 years ago. So we're really starting to get into that because I was always big into martial arts growing up. So we are starting to become a wrestling family, and I'm really enjoying that. And I don't know if you're into wrestling or not, but
I wrestled in high school.
Did you? So, I mean, it's a different world. And when you're into it, it gets intense and very exciting.
Well, my son's 7 and he's wanting to do something. And I know this is the beginning of the end of free nights once they get into sports. But, I just trying to figure out, he's not the most coordinated kid in the world. God love him.
It'll catch up.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, though. He's not very coordinated. My daughter's 3, and I think she's, I don't know, easily 3-4 times more coordinated than he is. It's weird.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got 3 of them, probably all 3 of them are completely different.
Unbelievably different, and that's what they always say. It's like, you can't believe that they're coming from the same family and they're all so different, and just different personalities. My youngest son is classic third child, very, likes to agitate the older boys, and he's just got such a personality to him. And my oldest is just really outgoing, likes to just go jump into any kind of situation, do whatever. He's actually doing soccer and football this season. So we literally, on Sundays, we've got 4 different games to go to. So we're church in the morning, and then it's 3 different soccer games. My wife and I are going out, and then he's got 6:00 football game. So we have something going on 7 days a week.
That is crazy. My son is like that. He's outgoing. Here at the campground, it's really nice campground, all concrete, paved, play area, lots of stuff. I mean, it's almost like you're living at summer camp. But so my son has a bike, and some kids that live here full time too. He's 7, but I mean, he'll go out Saturday morning at like 10. He has a watch that allows him to call us. So we'll call him and say, hey, come home for lunch, and we can track him on it. But if we don't call him, we won't see him till 6. He knows that he's got to be at the campground in the bus by the time the sun goes down. But
it's awesome, because I don't think a lot of kids are like that. And like, I remember growing up, that's what it was. We had a bell. My mom had a big bell by our house. And when we heard that bell, we knew we had to get home. But it was like, you go out in the morning, we'd be down in the creek, we'd be, often, playing ninja in the woods or whatever we're doing.
That's the only way your parents knew. Ours was they would drive around the neighborhood and find out where all the bikes were. Where all the bicycles were laying down in the front yard. Okay, that's where the kids are. Let's go. I mean,
I don't see that as much anymore. Even in the neighborhoods by us, it's just, occasionally you'll see a kid out and play, but they just,
it's really good. Everyone here at the campground, like, we'll just be sitting outside having dinner or whatnot, grilling. And every worker, the general manager, the owners, I don't know any of them. They're just driving by. Hey, Axton. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, I know people that.
He's out there network. Maybe he's a politician.
Out there. We call him our little politician. He'll convince you of whatever he wants is the right thing.
That was the way my oldest was, because we go on walks in the neighborhood at our old house, and he made friends with everybody. I almost didn't. My wife would be like, let's go out for a walk. I'm like, I don't want to go with you. And my son's name's Marcel, because you guys are going to talk to everybody. I just want to walk. But he's got to stop and pet their dog and ask them how they're doing. And I'm like, this is when he was like 5 or 6. Same thing. And so we used to call him and say, you're going to be a politician.
And then you got my daughter who's 3, and she doesn't really like people. She'll talk to people, but she'd rather just sit around until my son's very docile. He's very non-confrontational. He doesn't like that, but he likes people. My daughter doesn't care about confrontation.
She'll let him have it.
Someone's being mean to her brother. God save you.
I would love to see a little 3-year-old start just laying into him.
She may be 3, and I want to say she, like my son, he's a big boy. We don't grow him small. But my daughter, she's 3, and I don't even think she's 40 pounds. Like, she just won't grow. But she will jump right in the middle of someone that makes her Bubba cry. He gets hurt. She just walks right up to him, and she's like, what happened? Who did it?
That's awesome.
And I'm just like, it's supposed to be the opposite way there, Zoe.
I'm sure he'd stick up for her, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
She's already looking. Yeah, that's really cool.
The families I always wanted a family, and then you get them, and you're like, I just had no idea what it was going to be like.
Oh, I love being that.
It's the best thing.
It really is. And just especially, I loved the baby stage. Like I said, I wasn't there as often, but I tried to be there as much as possible. But it was such an awesome time. But then now that they're a little bit older, they have their personalities. We can go out, go fishing, and do our hiking. And now my oldest wants to get into hunting. So I used to be a big hunter back in the day. So I got him a small little archery bow. So he's thinking he wants to get out this year.
Do a little rifle season. That my son wants to go hunting, but I'm not there yet. I'm like you can't do hunter safety till you're 9 in Texas. So I'm like, you got to do hunter safety before we can go.
I think you can still he can go out with you, right? I think I went out with my dad when I was young.
Yeah, I think he can go out with me. He just can't shoot a gun or kill a deer, and I think that might be more punishment than telling him he can't go.
Yeah. Well, plus trying to keep a 7-year-old quiet in the woods might be a little challenging too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate the call. The conversation's been awesome. I love hearing about what you guys are doing. Is there anything new? I know we've got the website that's getting ready to launch. We've got the new tech crew. Any new products on the horizon that you guys are getting ready to release, or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a bunch of different programs that we're going to be launching with the website. So our new quick ship program, our new loyalty program, our prepaid freight program. So those things are all value add to our customers that I think are really going to make their lives a little bit easier as far as the ordering the paint aspect of it. Some of the features that I have built into the site, I'll be doing small little videos on. And so if people aren't following us on social media yet, please, follow our page, because I'm going to be putting a whole bunch of things that are going to be coming down the pipeline. As far as products go, we've got a lot of products that I think people don't even realize. So I've been putting those into the website. Like we're selling to maybe one customer a specialty product. I'm putting those on the website to try and educate everybody, all the data sheets, all of the, snippet information that we get. Like, I always get that. It's so hard to find the information on these products. It's all on our website form. So everything's there. All the SDSs, TDSs, sell sheets, everything's going to be there for them.
Not just linking to the manufacturer's page. You guys are going to be
right
hosting
there
it. That's awesome.
Yep. So that way there's no bouncing around. It's like, I want to go learn about, Renner's 765. You just go click right in there, and all your information is right there. Product information, the sell sheets, the SDS sheets, product videos. As we continue to do training videos, it's going to be right there at the product page. So it's going to be really nice and easy for them to go to. As far as products go, I do know that Malaysia has a new product that's going to be coming to market. I'm hoping we're going to be able to release this quarter. But it is something that is new and different. And that's exciting for us, because a lot of times in the coating world, people are making improvements to products, but they're not reinventing the wheel and saying, hey, here's something actually brand new. So I don't know that I'm allowed to completely say, hey, this is what it is, but it is something new way of developing the technology. I've seen the samples. I'm about to get to get hands-on spraying with, but the samples that I saw are phenomenal. So hopefully maybe latter half of Q4, seeing if we can launch it, but it's a really nice product. So that's going to be coming down the pipeline, and we'll be linking to it and showing everybody.
Yeah, shoot out your socials. That was kind of where I was going next. Let everyone make sure, if you're not following them, you're missing out. But yeah, shoot them out.
Yeah, just look up at Accessa Marketplace. AccessaMarketplace.com is the new website that's going to be coming out. You could, like I said, within the next week or two, you'll be able to just link right in there and follow us on all social media there. But we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Most of our social media right now we've been kind of slow rolling it, because we've been waiting for the website so that way everything can be linked to it. But most of our announcements are going to be coming out on Facebook. So yeah, definitely make sure you're following us.
Perfect. I'll try to get those, make sure I put those links down in the bio there for you guys to go jump on and make sure you're following them. But awesome. Man, Clark or DC, man, it was awesome. I loved you coming on. I greatly appreciate it. Glad you guys are doing good. Everything's kicking butt over there. After you get the website out and you get it running and you find out about that new product from Lacey, let's do another episode and get you on and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll hit you up as soon as we launch it out.
Because for some weird reason, Michael Smith just wants to be shy when it comes to coming on the podcast. I don't understand why.
He hasn't booked one yet, huh?
Well, I keep trying to get him. He's like, oh man, I just know how to do on that. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Talk to Joe Pilon. He'll come on.
Yeah, I was thinking about calling up Joe and seeing I'll get Joe on there. I just know Michael for so long. I'm like, we'll have a blast. But no, he gets nervous or something. I don't know.
A little bit shy. I thought he did a couple of them. I don't know.
Since when are you shy?
Some people just, they don't want to. It just makes them, it ties up their tongue. Actually, what's just happening to me? You don't know what to say or whatever. So, but yeah, Joe will talk your ear off. I'll maybe hit him up, see what he's got to say.
I'll have to hit Joe up. Well, again, man, everybody, thank you for listening. If you're not following Accessa at DC, get out there, follow them, go check out their website. Again, let's make sure we get you on the next one after that product comes out. And I just appreciate it, man. Appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, we'll talk to everybody later, and we'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.